Angular version 15 was officially released. In this video, we'll cover what I consider to be the most relevant changes in this new version of the framework. There's a lot to talk about today. But before we start, if you're having a good day and you want to distribute this positive energy to the world, please consider giving us a like and subscribing to the channel. I don't want to be annoying, but we are a team of 4 people creating content for you. I don't make any money from this channel, and it takes us 2 weeks to produce a video with this quality. So we appreciate all the help we can get to support the channel. Oh, and make sure to watch this video until the end. I have a bonus surprise for you, and it won't cost you anything. Alright, let's get started. The first thing to talk about are the easy wins. Those changes that are super easy to implement in our codebase. Or even better, things that improve our project without requiring any manual changes. Just a simple ng upgrade and we are good to go. These are the easy wins. The first easy win is that our error stack traces are much more relevant now. When I say relevant, I don't mean that the stack traces gives us more information necessarily. They might give us more information, we'll talk about that later, but that's not the point. I mean relevant in the sense of giving us information that we can actually use to fix the issue. Imagine this, you see an error with 1,000 lines of detailed information, and none of those lines help you solve the issue. Then it's not relevant. But if you see an error with just 10 lines of information, but they tell you exactly why the error happened and where exactly in your code it happened, then that is extremely relevant. And that is exactly what the Angular team did on version 15. They improved the error stack traces to remove irrelevant information, leaving us with just what we actually need to fix the issue. Now, you might be wondering, what is exactly that irrelevant information that they removed? The irrelevant information that I'm referring to is the framework's internal logic. When an error happens, we look at the stack trace to identify what is broken. And not that the Angular internal code is completely free of bugs, but come on, the chances of the error happening because of Angular's internal code are so low that it makes more sense to ignore the parts of the stack trace that are internal to the Angular framework, because that information, to us, is almost certainly just noise. It's just irrelevant information that makes it harder for us to find the actual place that is broken. So, the logical conclusion is to filter out the framework's internal logic from the error stack trace. That in itself is already great. This will certainly accelerate the debugging process for all Angular developers worldwide. But it doesn't stop there. Remember when I said that they might give us more information? Turns out that they do. Besides making the error stack traces more relevant, Angular version 15 also includes additional context information to help us pinpoint precisely what caused the error. For example, if the stack trace also involves code from a component template, we will see a reference to the exact line of the component template that caused the error. And the Angular team said they won't stop there. The team promised that they will improve this even further in future versions and display a developer-friendly template code snippet in the error stack trace. The next easy win is that the automatic imports just got smarter. You know when you type a function, class, or even a type that isn't imported in your module yet, and then VS Code automatically imports those things to you? Well, now this algorithm got smarter. In Angular 15, if you're in a component template and you attempt to use another component that wasn't imported yet, Angular will give you an option to automatically import that component. If you're using standalone components, Angular will automatically import what you need directly to your standalone component. And if you're using an ng module, Angular will automatically import what you need directly to your ng module. In terms of build performance, we also got some updates. You know, the Angular build process is kind of like a car. Hear me out. You can get slightly better every year by making small adjustments to the engine, or you can be more aggressive and replace the entire engine for a more performant one. In Angular, the main engine used in the build process is Webpack. And if we want to go faster, we can replace it with ESBuild. Not to throw shade at Webpack, far from it. Webpack is a remarkable tool and it opened the door to many of the front-end tools that we now have. But just like Browserify was once the best solution and then it lost its position to Webpack, now Webpack is losing its position to a new generation of build tools. In the official ESBuild website, they show a comparison between ESBuild, Parcel, Rollup, and Webpack. And in that benchmark comparison, ESBuild wins big, with a whopping 10 to 100 times faster result than its competitor. Looking at that, it seems obvious that the best solution is not to improve Webpack, but instead to make a full switch to ESBuild. The option of switching from Webpack to ESBuild was made available on Angular 14, but it was still highly experimental, and some major features such as watch mode and file replacements were not available back then. Angular 15 still doesn't provide a stable solution, but it does provide a more complete solution, because now ESBuild supports Sass, SVG templates, file replacements, and watch mode. The way we are going, I wouldn't be surprised if they introduced stable support for ESBuild in Angular 16. If you want to use ESBuild instead of Webpack, you can do so right now by simply changing one line in your Angular JSON configuration. Be aware, using ESBuild for Angular is more complete than before, but it's still experimental. There might be bugs. Use it with caution. Talking about speed, Google has many other projects going on besides Angular, and one of these projects is called Chrome Aurora. The team at Chrome Aurora is working to make web development frameworks more powerful and easier for the developers that use them. One of the many things that were done with that goal in mind was to collaborate with the Angular team to develop an image optimization system for Angular applications. This system would allow Angular developers to easily optimize how images are used in their applications by automatically adopting best practices. Before we go on to the solution, let's get some examples of what are those best practices for image optimizations, just so that we have a clear idea of what were their challenges. First, those images at the bottom of your website page, those that are invisible to the user when the page loads. They don't have to be downloaded immediately. We can focus on the critical downloads first and leave the downloads of these non-critical images for later. This is called lazy loading. Second, besides leaving the non-critical images for later, we can also treat the critical images with priority. We can do that with resource hints, such as preload, preconnect, and image fetch priority. To be fair, image fetch priority is kinda new and experimental, but preload and preconnect are super easy to use and fully supported by all major browsers. Third, we should download images with the sizes that we actually need. So if you only need a small image, there's no need to download it in 4K ultra high resolution. Fourth, there are also format optimizations. For example, we should use WebP instead of PNG, because that gives us smaller file sizes. As you can see from these examples, image best practices are not hard, but they are annoying and easy to forget. All those practices were considered by the Angular and Chrome Aurora teams, and in response to that, they came up with the Angular Image Directive. Their goal is to facilitate those best practices as much as possible. Ideally, they should be done automatically for us. And if that's not possible, they should at least be much easier. And hats off to these amazing professionals because they did it. To use the Angular Image Directive, we only need to change the src attribute from our image tags to ng-src. By doing just that, Angular will automatically lazy load non-critical images and configure the loading property in our image tag so that modern browsers automatically load images only when they come close to the visible area. If we want to change that behavior, we can manually set the loading attribute to eager, which tells the browser to load the image as soon as the image element is processed. But it doesn't stop there. The Angular image directive can do even more optimizations. Another one is the automatic generation of the image source set. In other words, Angular will define size and pixel density variations of the original image. And when it comes time to download the image, it will download the most efficient variation for our users. So as I said before, if you only need a small image, there's no need to download it in ultra high resolution. Besides all those amazing automatic optimizations, we also have warning messages when Angular detects that we're doing something wrong. For example, if we set the width and height of an image, but it doesn't match the aspect ratio of the original image, we get a warning saying that the image will be visually distorted when rendered. As you can see, this topic is very deep. We could do a full video just about the Angular image directive. But what we covered so far is more than enough to introduce you to the topic and showcase some of the problems that we can solve with it. Before we go on to other topics, it's important to note that the Angular image directive is not exactly new to Angular 15. It was actually introduced in Angular 14.2. But back then, this feature was just a developer preview. It wasn't stable. But now, in Angular 15, this feature is officially stable and ready for production usage. And to close our easy wins, Angular 15, the initial project structure that we get with ng-new has been simplified. Many configuration files were removed. We no longer have the polyfills file or the tests file. Even the environments folder was removed. Let me be clear, Angular did not remove those features. They just cleared the view. The polyfills are now defined in the Angular JSON, and if you need environment files, like me, you can still add them. They just don't come by default. This change is good for new developers because it reduces the initial complexity. And as the Angular team said in the launch event, most developers don't ever touch those files, so removing them from view is the right call. Now we get to the popular topic. Drum roll, please. Standalone components. The first news here is that, as of Angular 15, standalone components are officially stable. They were introduced in Angular 14, but just like the Angular image directive that we were just talking about, standalone components were available as a developer preview on Angular 14. It's only now in Angular 15 that they become officially stable. What that means in practice is that from now on, any changes to standalone components will have to follow semantic versioning. So any breaking changes will have to be first deprecated and then later removed in major versions of the Angular framework. In other words, it's safer for us to use standalone components in production. Another improvement to standalone components is that now we can generate them from the Angular CLI. All we gotta do is use the -- standalone flag when we run ng-generate component. And now we also have more granular control over the parts of the common module our component depends on. What I mean is, practically, all my modules and standalone components import the common module from Angular Common. That's because the common module is, well, extremely common. This is the module that exports ngIf, ngFor, the async pipe, and others. We practically always need something from the common module, but we don't always need everything from it. Thus far, if we wanted to import ngIf or just ngFor, we couldn't do that easily. We had to import the whole common module. Now we can import individual parts from it. This is important because it enables better tree shaking of individual directives. We also got functional APIs to interact with the router and the HTTP client. Let's start with the HTTP client. Instead of importing the entire HTTP client module and then providing request interceptors in root, we can now use the provide HTTP client function to generate only the specific parts of the HTTP client module that we really need for our application. And it also provides a cleaner way of declaring request interceptors and other configurations, such as custom XSRF tokens and support for JSON-P. Besides the cleaner API, which I like very much, I suspect we also get some benefits in tree shaking with that approach. but I couldn't find an official reference confirming that, so I could be wrong here. Those improvements to the HTTP client are very welcome, but honestly, the HTTP client was never a huge pain, at least for me. What is a pain, for me, is route guards. I really don't like that we need to create a whole class just to define a route guard. Most of my guards are very straightforward, and I would like them to be simple functions instead of classes. We can do that now. For example, let's say you have a route guard to prevent a route from being activated if the user is not logged in. Much better now. Now, let's talk about what I consider to be the most relevant change in Angular 15. I am talking about the Directive Composition API. Angelic sounds? I consider this to be the most relevant change in this new version of the framework because it allows us to do something that we simply could not do before. Standalone components are nice, but we could do all that with ng modules. Functional APIs for the router and HTTP client are great, but the router and the HTTP client were already available before. But the Directive Composition API is different. It allows us to do something new. It's not an alternative syntax to something that already existed. It's different. It's a new feature. With the Directive Composition API, we are now able to compose our components with other directives without extending any classes. No need for object inheritance. Let me give you an example. Let's say we're creating a component that should be clickable. Users should navigate to a specific page when they click on our component. The Angular way of doing this is using a router link. The problem is that I can't use a router link in my component host. I can only use a router link in the child elements declared in my template. So, what can we do? Thus far, one of the solutions was to create a container element inside the component template and apply the router link to it. It's not terrible, but something feels wrong. The framework is fighting against us. We want to reuse all the logic that exists for the router link directive in our component host, but we can't. The framework doesn't allow that. Imagine writing a great modular directive that can be reused in many parts of your application. You write tests for this directive. You write docs for this directive. You join my company because if you wrote great code with tests and docs, you're ready to be on my team. And after all that, you can't use that directive the way it was supposed to because Angular doesn't let you do what you want. That is just sad. Very sad. And we know that this is possible because our component has a parent, and to this parent, our component is just a child. And we know that we can apply directives to child elements. So if I can apply the router link directive from outside my component and it works, why can't I apply it from inside my component? Now we can. With the Directive Composition API, we can tell Angular that we want to apply some directives to our component host. We can now refactor the previous example to remove the container element and apply the router link directive directly to our component host. Just one note here. For this to work, the directives used in host directives must be standalone. Your component, the one that is receiving the directive, does not need to be standalone. But the directive you want to apply to your component host needs to be standalone. If you're subscribed to the channel, maybe you watched the video that we did when Angular 14 was released. In that video, I said that the inject function would open many doors, especially for functional programming in Angular. Now this feature, the Directive Composition API, is just like that. This feature opens many doors in Angular development. I'm very excited for it. Before we wrap things up, I have a gift for you for watching the video until the end. We covered many topics in this video, but one thing we didn't talk about are the breaking changes in Angular 15. In other words, what are the things that used to work in previous versions but don't work in version 15? To answer that, my team prepared a mind map with everything we talked about in this video and also an extra section showing all the breaking changes in Angular 15. That way you can easily refer to it and remember everything we've presented here. This mind map is available for free to all our email subscribers. So, on one hand, you help the channel grow. We become less dependent on the YouTube algorithm. And in return, you get this awesome mind map to remember everything we covered here and an extra section explaining all the breaking changes in Angular 15. To get that, go to lucaspaganini.com/Angular15. Also, I'm building a course on web animations. At the moment I'm recording, the course is not ready yet, but you can go to lucaspaganini.com/webanimations to join the waiting list and get a discount when we launch the course. Or maybe we already launched it, I don't know how far in the future you are. Anyways, chances are that you've already used web animations before. But if you want to get deeper into that subject and create a strong mental model of how everything works, then consider checking out the course at lucaspaganini.com/webanimations. These were the most relevant changes in Angular 15, in my opinion. If you got value from this content, please consider giving this video a like and also subscribing to our channel. This small gesture helps a lot. If your company is looking for remote web developers, consider contacting me and my team. You can do so at envoy.com. Thank you, Angular team, for your outstanding work in this new version of the framework. Your efforts are very much appreciated. As always, like, subscribe, have a great day, and I will see you in the next one.